What's going on, Wealth Builders? Today I have Pastor Manny Arango on the show, and we're going to do something a little bit different. We're actually going to jump straight into the conversation where he starts talking about the broke mentality that so many Christians have right now. So many times in the church, we're told we shouldn't pursue making money. We shouldn't pursue building wealth because money is the root of all evil. And he squashes every single one of those false beliefs and false doctrines. And on top of that, he actually makes the case that the disciples themselves were actually wealthy people, which would be surprising to so many. So I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. Let's hop into it. Welcome to the Wealthy Way podcast. I'm Ryan Pineda, your host and the founder of Wealthy University. I've invested in over $100 million of real estate and have built multiple 8-figure businesses. My mission is to help you build wealth and grow in your faith. So get ready for some raw conversations with some of the most successful people in the world. Let's hop into it. Yeah, and I do like what you said about, you have to go through difficult times to build, the stress and the muscles and all of those things. And I've said it before, but it's like, man, my life is just simply a series of events of choosing whether or not to push through. And that's what's forged me into who I am today and how I perceive difficulties in life. And it's like, I'll go through a situation. I'm like, that's not anything, right? And whatever, I get through it. And then somebody else talks about like, it's the end of the world because freaking, I don't know, the Lakers didn't win. Or even something like losing a job, right?
Yeah.
Something that's tough. And it's like, have you ever lost a job before? You ever lost money on a deal before? Then you're probably not too fazed by it. Because you've been through it. Have you ever? It's just you've dealt with it. What's the big deal? I was telling people that on stage today. I was like, hey guys, there's nothing wrong with shutting down a business.
Come on. That's good.
I'm like, guys, if it doesn't serve you anymore, it's not producing the fruit that it used to produce. It's okay to start fresh and do something new. Nobody says you have to keep doing it. And I go there. You might feel like there's shame or an identity part of you in that business, but I'm like, look, I've shut down many businesses. I have no problem doing it now. Because I've done it. And so, the moment something's not working, if I don't feel like there is a future with it, then it's probably better to make the hard decision now than spin my wheels for another year.
Can we book you for a pastors conference and you tell pastors like it's okay to shut down your church?
Well, I don't know the biblical, thing with that, but you tell me.
It is okay.
Yeah.
But the key thing, right, is identity. That's you're saying, man, there may be shame or embarrassment or ego wrapped up in this business. I don't want to shut it down because at some level, I believe it's a reflection of my identity.
Yes.
So I can't let
go. I'm a failure if I let go.
I'm a failure, exactly. And I think there are a lot of senior pastors period, who I tell friends of mine, pastors, all the time, it sucks that you'd rather be starting 5 at a church of like 50 people than be on the bench at a church of 2,500 people.
Right.
Like, dude, you'd be a phenomenal senior associate pastor. You'd be an amazing associate pastor somewhere else. And actually what you've done is you've added tons of stress and tons of anxiety to your life because, as you know more than me, because you're in better physical shape than me, no ego at the gym. That's the worst thing I can have in the gym is an ego. I'd rather have the right form benching a weight that I can actually push up.
I'm not going to go try and bench 300 pounds when I can't.
And there's a lot of people. I don't know you're more familiar in the entrepreneurial space than I am. I'm very familiar in the ministry space. There's lots of people in ministry who it's their identity. I'm pastor so-and-so. I'm whatever. And it's like, man, you'd be way better off. It's okay to shut this down. God's not a failure if you shut this down.
It's funny. I had this conversation recently because, and I'm sure you may have a solution or you've dealt with it, but I was like, what happens when a church actually has longevity? How does it transition? Because let's say you plant a church, so it's a young church. And probably a church planter's also pretty young.
For sure.
You know? And let's say you have success.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And over the next 20 years, 30 years, you know, those initial people that grew with you grow with the church.
Yep.
And you grow as well. But, you know, you're also getting old now.
Yeah.
And then now the church has a new problem of that the church is now all old. And maybe, you know, the tithes and everything might be good.
Yeah.
Because you get an older crowd. But guess what? That church is basically on the verge of dying.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, if you don't get young blood in, and young blood in most cases wants to be around young blood, you know, I personally don't want to go to a church where everyone's 60, 70 years old.
For sure.
You know? And so what happens? Like, to me, I was just like thinking about the idea in my head. I'm like, man, a church probably needs to start planning for that like really early to start incorporating young people in, number one.
Yes.
And start grooming a younger pastor.
Yep.
A succession plan. But even then, like, if it starts to just get old, I'm like, they kind of don't have a choice other than to just pretty much reinvent itself and start over. There's not really a path.
The church is facing this issue right now. I mean, that is 100% happening. There's so many churches that I know right now, thriving, younger, growing, that are buying buildings from denominations that 100 years ago were thriving, like the Presbyterian denomination bought all these beautiful cathedrals in downtown areas and built them from the ground up because they had money.
Yeah. They're killing it.
They were crushing it. And a Lutheran or Methodist or whatever, like at the end of the day, you know, you used a key word. The word you used is succession.
Yeah.
Okay. The root of that word is success. So we have to define success as involving succession.
Right.
If success doesn't make it past one generation, then we actually did not succeed.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not really success.
We did not succeed.
Yeah.
That is not what we did. That means you
didn't build up other leaders. You held on too long.
So it's have you ever been to Israel?
Not yet.
Oh man.
Yeah. I want to go.
Dude,
tough time right now.
I know. Right now is not a great time. But I was actually gonna go to Israel this year, but for obvious reasons, the trip got canceled.
We'll go together. We'll go together next time.
Anytime anyone tells me they haven't been, I go, I want to take you. I immediately am like, oh, I want to take you to Israel. So there are two main bodies of water. You're familiar with both. The first is the Sea of Galilee. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Sea of Galilee is fed by the Jordan River.
Yep.
Okay, the Dead Sea is also fed by the Jordan River. Okay, both of these bodies of water are fed by the exact same river.
Okay.
Okay, the Sea of Galilee, full of life. You can fish. I mean, the Sea of Galilee is amazing. It's literally just brimming with life. The Dead Sea, on the other end, nothing grows in the Dead Sea. I mean, it's literally dead because you can't fish in the Dead Sea. It's just salt. I mean, if we go to Israel, we could literally, I've done this multiple times, you just float in it, okay?
Yeah.
Like, you can't sink to the bottom. And okay, so why? How is it that the Jordan River feeds both of these bodies of water, but one is alive and one's totally dead? Well, it's because the Sea of Galilee isn't just fed by a river, but then it feeds other bodies of water. It has an entrance, it has an exit, because that's what makes life life, that you receive and you give. You don't hoard. The Dead Sea, on the other hand, has no exit. It hoards everything that is dumped into it. And because it hoards everything that's dumped into it, it's dead. Because the key to life is actually to be a giver. The key to life is to say, there's a generation coming up behind me. The key to life is to say, I'm not living for me.
Yeah.
The key to life is not to collect, consume, hoard, keep. That life isn't designed to go that way. And when we do that with life, well, there are whole TV shows about that. It's called Hoarders. Okay? That's not, no one rolls up on a house with people hoarding, and it's not MTV Cribs. That's not the vibe.
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite. But for a lot of people, their soul, they hoard. They hoard, man, they hoard bitterness, resentment, offense. And so succession actually requires that I live in a way that's not selfish.
Yeah.
That I go, all right, cool. I've got more vision than just the 20-year or the 30-year run that we're going to go on. There's got to be a farm system. There's got to be a D-League. There's got to be something.
Yeah.
So that, you know, right now the Warriors are probably going to have to rebuild. All right, great. They're going to have to go into a whole season of rebuilding.
Yeah.
Man, you can make an argument. Maybe they should have been thinking about this a couple of years ago. Anyway, maybe that's why Jordan Poole. Maybe they shouldn't have traded Jordan. Anyway, we could go.
They should have, but yeah.
We can make all kinds of arguments, right? But life is about rebuilding. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, right? So it's been a while since the Patriots have won. I was living in Boston for all of the parades and all the championships, and we're in a season of rebuilding. So church is no different. Like at the end of the day, if you're not intentionally, no one accidentally just creates a system where development is going on. That's not something that happens by accident.
Right.
That takes intentionality.
Right.
And so I think baked into the definition of success, churches need to have this idea that, man, we don't want to be the Dead Sea. We don't want to hoard, collect, whatever. Short-term gains, sure, but long-term, this is going to bite us.
Yeah.
We want to be the kind of church that, hey, people are tithing, people are giving. Of course, we're going to reroute these funds to youth ministry and children's ministry and next-gen ministry. Of course, we're going to do that. That doesn't seem smart right now, but oh my gosh, it's an investment. This is an investment. And it's funny. So I grew up poor. I don't know if you know that. Okay, I grew up really poor. Okay. My dad was incarcerated for 18 years. My dad took me to a crack house for the first time when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
My mom was pregnant when she was 12.
Wow.
Had my older sister at 13. Pregnant again at 14 with my older brother. Had him at 15. And so I had to unlearn poverty mentality. Okay, my mom, all my older two siblings born in the projects, just all my cousins either dealt drugs, met them while they were incarcerated. All 5 of my uncles are alcoholics. 3 of my aunts are prostitutes. I mean, my family, I'm the first Arango with a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, soon to have my doctorate, first Arango to be an author, first Arango to own real estate. Like, first Arango to not be defined by a generational stronghold or a cycle, but to know, no, my family of origin doesn't define me. Jesus defines me.
Yeah.
The blood of Jesus is stronger than any curse that the enemy could keep my family trapped in. So all throughout my life, I've had to unlearn lessons that poverty teaches you.
Yeah.
Because poverty is not just how much money you have. Poverty is the relationships that you have. So my aunts, the reason that they're poor is not because of the money in their bank account. The reason they're poor is because they don't even know anyone who's of means.
Yeah.
So when people try to make this argument that Jesus was poor, I'm like, you don't know your Bible, because Jesus is friends with wealthy people. And if you're friends with a wealthy person, you are wealthy. Period. Like, the definition of poverty is not how much money you have. It's how much money you have access to. And if you have relationships with people that have money, then you have money.
Yeah.
So there's no world where Jesus...
You're talking to the real estate guy who borrows money for a living.
Yeah. So there's no world where Jesus is poor.
Yeah.
And I would actually make the argument most of the disciples are wealthy.
Why do you say that?
Okay, so Peter. Let's take Peter.
Fisherman.
There's another thing why you need to go to Israel.
Okay.
Because when you're walking around Israel, all you see is olive trees everywhere. Okay, you can't build a house out of lumber from an olive tree.
Okay.
So when the Bible talks about the cedars of Lebanon, okay, when Solomon's building the temple, he has to import lumber from other places because Israel doesn't grow pine, it doesn't grow cedars, it doesn't grow the kind of trees that you actually need for building stuff.
Yeah.
So anyone who owns a boat is wealthy.
Yeah.
Period. And the Bible doesn't say that Peter's just a fisherman. It says that he owns the boats.
Yeah.
Which is why he can leave for 3 years and follow Jesus around.
Yeah.
Because his business is making money while he's on the road with Jesus. Peter's an entrepreneur. Let's think about this. They get to a moment where Jesus is preaching. The people have traveled from a long distance. The disciples go to Jesus. And they're like, hey, people are hungry. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Jesus goes, feed them. Think about this, okay? Think about their response to this. This is their response. They say to Jesus, should we go in town and buy food for them?
So they got money.
Let's think. Do poor people ask that question?
Yeah.
That is not a question that none of my cousins would ask. None of my cousins want to be on the hook.
I don't think they would ask anything. I think they would just say no.
Yeah. So you feed them. Nah.
Yeah.
Okay, so they give Jesus the problem. There's an issue here. The disciples, their immediate thinking is money can fix this. Let's just go to town.
Yeah.
Let's go to town and buy food.
Yeah.
For 15,000 people, there's 5,000 men.
Yep.
So we're probably looking at 15,000 mouths. Their immediate thought is, yeah, man, we can fix this. Think about Judas, okay? Judas is stealing money out of the essentially the pot. He's stealing money out of the purse that they have funds in.
Yeah.
Am I stealing money
from broke people?
From broke? No. No. The reason that it's a real temptation. Think about it. Judas gets 30 pieces of silver for betraying Jesus, and the money means nothing to him. He throws it back, full of remorse.
Yeah.
This idea that the disciples are poor and Jesus is poor. Poor people created that theology to make them feel better about being poor. This is not founded in like actual biblical theology. Joseph of Arimathea is a wealthy person.
Yeah.
That is there at the crucifixion. And Jesus, this is identity. Jesus doesn't feel any more or less comfortable around rich people or poor people. Jesus, in the same day, can talk to blind Bartimaeus, who's begging, or the man at the pool of Bethesda, who's been asking for handouts for the last 38 years, and feel totally comfortable, totally at home, and then walk into Zacchaeus' house, who is wealthy. There's not even a debate. Tax collectors are wealthy individuals.
Yeah, Matthew.
And walk into Zacchaeus' house and feel just as comfortable. Jesus is equally as comfortable with the dude who's been making excuses, who's been dealing with this issue, who's been begging for 38 years, and feel equally comfortable with Zacchaeus because Jesus' identity is not wrapped up in anything of this world, anything financial. And Christians should feel just as comfortable. So I tell people all the time, if you feel uncomfortable around the poorest of the poor, then something's off. If you feel uncomfortable around the rich of the rich, something's off. You should feel comfortable around everybody because your identity is not in any of this stuff. Your identity is in a kingdom that's not of this world. So poverty mentality, okay? Let's go back to poverty mentality. Here's something I had to unlearn. Kids are expensive. Who taught you that? I grew up hearing kids ain't cheap. Kids are expensive from poor people. I grew up hearing that from broke people. Well, let's ask some questions. Do you think Serena and Venus Williams' father thinks kids are expensive? Do you think Michael Jordan's parents think kids are expensive? Do you think Tiger Woods' dad thinks kids are expensive? No, I don't think any of those parents would say that the sneakers for basketball practice or the tennis rackets or the golf lessons are expensive. They're not expensive. It just costs what it costs. The moment you say kids are expensive, number one, that's broke mentality. It's just poverty mentality. Kids aren't expensive. They cost what they cost. And they cost something. I tell this to people all the time. You know, because you get staff and people come from different backgrounds, especially if they come from a church background. Christians just are stuck in poverty mentality. So, you know, we'll be thinking about an event or building a website or developing an app, and someone will go, that's expensive. So take that word out of your vocabulary. The moment you call something expensive Now you've made a subjective value to it. Objectively, it just costs $12,000. Just say it costs $12,000.
Yeah.
But it's subjective to say
It's
that
just money amount.
it's a money amount.
Yeah.
$1 million is a lot of money to you.
Subjectively.
But subjectively. But there are people who that's not a lot of money for.
Yeah.
So you can't say that, that Gucci wallet's expensive. No. That Gucci wallet costs what it costs. This is not necessarily expensive. It's out of your budget. But to deem it expensive is to accept poverty mentality. Don't call things expensive. Just say it is what it is. So this idea, this notion, kids are expensive. Man, the hood is the only place I ever heard that. The neighborhood I grew up in is the only place I ever heard people say kids are expensive.
Right.
Then I get around wealthy people. No one says kids are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know what it's hard for wealthy people to give their kids? Time.
Yeah.
Not hard to give them money. It's hard to give time. So when a wealthy person says a kid is expensive, it's because it costs that person time. But here's the reality. If you leave more to your kids than you leave in them, then you'll squander everything you leave to them.
Yeah.
But this notion, there's all these things that poverty teaches us.
Right.
And man, I'm actually grateful that the church I got saved at was a church that cared about the whole person. So it wasn't a compartmentalized spirituality.
Yeah.
It was, we care about your physical well-being. So my pastor, he was the first person that taught me about real estate. He's like, what good is it if you're gonna, what good is it if you have the power of the Holy Spirit, but you have no authority in the earth?
Whoa.
Like, what good is it if you have power but no authority? So, in church, I think we emphasize power a lot, especially I come from a Pentecostal background.
Yep.
The power of the Holy Ghost is real, right? But if you look at a police officer, they don't have to pull out their gun because everyone respects the authority of the badge.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're in front of a car, that car has more power than them, but the police officer has more authority. And so stuff like real estate is authority. That gives you authority. Every senior pastor that I know right now says that the level of spiritual authority that they have in a city exponentially increases when they own land in that city, when they own property, when they build a building. And so you may have more people at your church than, let's say, the church down the street, the Baptist church that's struggling. But man, they own acres of land and they own buildings and they own property. And so there's a level of just authority that churches that actually have a stake in the ground in a city have. And every church planner that I know says, yeah, we were in a school and then we went into a building, and we didn't just grow because we had more seats. We didn't just grow because, the YouTube channel got better or we did SEO better. No, the building actually helped us to grow because there's a level of spiritual authority that you get in a city when you actually put your money where your mouth is and you buy the dirt and you actually own some land and you build something. You're actually building a church that is wired for longevity because it's actually something that you own. Ownership is a spiritual principle. That's not like something that the secular world comes up with. No, you open up the Bible, and Abraham, before his descendants ever get to the land of Canaan, he buys a burial plot. And he says, this is Genesis, it says that the king that actually owned the land wanted to give it to him. And Abraham goes, no, I will not accept this as a gift. Why? Because it's a down payment for what his future generations are actually going to inherit. So when they come to invade the land of Canaan, Abraham, hundreds of years prior, put a stake in the ground. Because when you own stuff, there's this authority that you have. And I had to learn that. My father, who was on drugs, and my mom, who was a teenage mother, couldn't teach me that. I had to learn that in church. I had to learn that by reading the Bible. I had to learn that by unlearning poverty mentality and actually deciding, no, there's a wealthy way to live.
Yeah.
Like, not like prosperity gospel, name it, claim it. You know what I'm saying? No,
Yeah.
like, no, be diligent, be disciplined, live according to a budget, live beneath your means, have a vision for your life, be able to communicate that vision to other people, deposit in people, prophesy. Like, there's when prosperity gospel is wacky, it's wacky, right? And we all know when it's wacky. But man, you can't make something wacky if there's not actually something there.
Yeah.
And the enemy loves to distort stuff. So sometimes what we know as a distortion, I think it's our job as like people who are kingdom minded, Bible believing Christians to go, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because some wacky name it, claim it, prosperity gospel people are taking this out of context doesn't mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We put this back into context. And in context, there are just some factual things that we can say. We know Jesus wasn't poor. We know the disciples are not poor. But we balance that with the Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. So the Bible says if you don't leave it in, if you don't care for your family, you're worse than an unbeliever. So prosperity gospel sometimes tries to believe by promise what they deny by principle. And when you put things back in balance and tension and context, you go, oh no, the Bible isn't just saying I can lay hands on something and it's mine or manifest stuff. It's actually saying that there are some real principles that there are some real practical life principles that if I engage them, that man, I'll be a wealthy person. And not just financially, I'll be wealthy with relationships, wealthy in wisdom, wealthy in so many areas of my life. So
Yeah.
I went on a bit of a rant there.
No, I love it. I mean, that's what the wealthy way is all about. I mean, it's being abundant in all areas of life, your relationships, your faith, your, money, your health, all those things. And I just think, like you said, Christians struggle with this a lot. I get so many DMs because they're like, dude, how do you do it, man? Like, I love that you're out there, teaching people how to make money and build wealth and all those things. But do you ever feel guilty? Do you ever, how do you battle not wanting to be a lover of money and all of those things, right? Because we are warned against that.
Absolutely.
And, how do you deal with, like you said, maybe even false theology of, well, everyone was broke and, so that was how they did it. So we should never strive to make money. And we should just worry about, I don't know, evangelizing and going on missions and being broke. And I'm like, well, who's going to fund the missions? Somebody's got to fund the missions.
Fantastic question.
Somebody's got to fund the church. Somebody's got to fund, the people whose calling is to do those things.
Absolutely.
So somebody's got to do that for the kingdom.
Agreed. Dude, John Rockefeller believed it was his God-ordained responsibility to make as much money as possible. So John Rockefeller holds the record in his lifetime for making more money than any human being alive and simultaneously giving away more money than any human being alive. You know, he was a staunch Christian.
I did not know that.
For real.
Wow.
Dude, John D. Rockefeller was a serious devoted Christian. His mother raised him to be Christian. He believed that it was his God-ordained destiny to not only like make a lot of money, but to take over the oil business. So, I mean, this is and equally. So imagine that as a stat, okay? You've amassed more wealth than any person in that's alive on the earth, and you've simultaneously given away more money than any human that's alive on the earth. Before the time John D. Rockefeller dies, he gives away more money than any human being on the planet. He was an absolute tithe till the day he was dead, man. He's a
crazy.
Serious Christian.
Yeah.
Serious Christian.
And look at the impact century later.
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's what one believer is able to do to push not and this is the real one, not just the church forward or missions or in all the philanthropic stuff that he gave to, but to push the nation forward.
Yeah.
He like fully believed
yeah, he changed the entire country.
Yeah.
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 So what do you do with the part I talked about with the lovers of money? How do you How do you combat that so you don't become that as you pursue wealth?
Yeah. So, this is great.
Yeah.
First of all, generosity. So this is a whole. You're about to open up a whole can of worms.
Okay, I want to hear.
Okay. By the way, the reason that I love taking people to Israel, going to Israel, is because in some ways, in certain areas, our Jewish brothers and sisters have just better theology around stuff. Sometimes Christians, we get Jesus right, but then we get all these other stuff. We get all these other areas wacky, right? And so, Jews believe that there are 7 levels to giving. Okay, and I'll tell you the 6th and the 7th, because the 6th and 7th combat against the love of money. Okay, so the 6th is to give anonymously. Okay, so you as the giver know the recipient, but the recipient doesn't know who gave. Okay, that's the 6th level of giving. Okay, and the 7th level of generosity is to give anonymously and blind. So you don't know who you're giving to, and the person who receives it doesn't know where it came from. Because a lot of times, we sometimes say the solution for not being a lover of money is to just be generous. But some people actually use generosity as a way to create clout for themselves. Jesus teaches about this. He's like, hey, when you give, Pharisees, don't make a big deal out of your giving. Your left hand shouldn't know what your right hand is doing. And so sometimes we give a really easy answer, like, oh, just be generous. Well, generosity, just in and of itself, doesn't necessarily combat the love of money. But you know what does? Giving and making it a requirement that no one knows who gave. That? Oh, man. The times where it's like, because, generosity is awesome because it feels great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels good to be generous. It does. Like, but when there's no ability for anyone to say thank you, when I'm paying for someone to go to school and they have no idea how I got paid, that is like, man, I'm combating the love of money. I don't love what money's able to provide anymore. I'm now saying, you know what? I'll give, and I'll give in a way where there's no ability for anyone to thank me. I don't get any of the reward from being a generous person. So I think generosity is a big part of it. I just think we have to have some more nuanced conversations around generosity, because there's a lot of times where everyone who's generous isn't always generous for the right reasons, right? Sometimes I've been in a lot of churches where, you'll get this, like, a decision gets made that someone doesn't agree with, and they're like, well, I was actually a youth pastor. You'll love this. I was a youth pastor for 10 years. Okay. Thank God that's over. I love teenagers, but thank God that's over.
That was the season.
That was the season. I served my time. And so, man, our youth facility, I think we had like 7 or 8 mics. Like, the soundboard that we had could handle 8 mics. And so, there's a worship leader and some background singers. And so this girl that was on the worship team couldn't get a mic. Okay. And so, her parents come to the church. They're super upset that their daughter doesn't have a mic. And they had printed out their tithing record. And they were like, do you know how much money we've given to this church? Our daughter needs to have a mic. And I remember being like, so you were generous so that you could use this as leverage to get your daughter onto a platform at church? See, this is a great area where generosity did not kill the spirit of mammon that's operating in your life. You are currently arguing with the youth pastor around a real prop. Like, I can't make more mics. I cannot create another soundboard. But what I wish I could create is some humility in your life, because you didn't give with a pure heart.
Yeah.
You gave so that you could get on the deacon board. You gave so that you could whatever. So, and here's the other thing with the love of money, Ryan. Here's what I love. You know who loves money more than anybody? Broke people.
Yeah.
Because I love this because the Bible doesn't say the love of wealth. It says the love of money. There are some people, all they got is money. They don't even have wealth. I say this to guys all the time. I say this to men. There are certain men who have lied to themselves to tell themselves that they're the provider for their home, but they're not, because the word provision is a compound word, pro and vision, which means for it to be provision, it must be for the vision. There are some men, they are not providing. All they're doing is making money. So all they have is money.
Yeah.
Because what they fail to do is provide vision for their wife, vision for their kids, vision for their home. There's no culture where there's no culture by design, there's a culture by default. There's no vision, there's no mission statement for their family. So it's like, before I assess, man, should I take the opportunity to be at WealthCon? Should I speak at Pastor Jabin's church? Before I accept anything, should I sign this book deal? The first thing I have to ask is it for the vision that God gave me for my family? Because if it's not for the vision, then it's not provision.
Yeah.
If it's not for the vision, it's just money.
Yeah.
And I don't need money. I need things that are going to accelerate the vision that God gave me.
Yeah.
And so the love of money, man, there's a whole bunch of people who have idolized money and they don't have any. There's a whole bunch of people who have idolized money and they're poor. So sometimes when we go, the love of money, it's almost like we like to throw the slap in the face to people who are rich or people who are wealthy. And it's like, I've met a bunch of wealthy people who loved money, and I've met wealthy people who were content. And I met poor people who love money, and I met poor people who were content, which means this is a heart issue. There's no dollar amount in the bank account that can say that I love money or don't love money. At the end of the day, here's what I do love. I love seeing God provide. I love the stories that come out of God providing.
Yeah.
I love the dependence that the lifestyle I've chosen creates that I have on God. There's all types of things that I love, but money's too small of a thing to even fall in love with.
Yeah.
If it's just money, then I would never fall in love with money.
I think one of the ways that you can tell whether or not you love money is your feelings about it, right? Because I mean, one thing, it's one thing to be generous for the right or wrong reasons, but I've met many people that, it's like what Paul says. He's like, dude, I've learned to become content with little.
Yeah.
I've learned to become content with much.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen that with money.
Absolutely.
With, in my own life, like when I was making $1,200 a month and my wife and I were just trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
It's not like I resented money or like it was just money.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, we need money to live and all these things, but I don't feel this certain way about money that I hate it or love it. It's just a tool. And
it's good.
At the end of the
day,
day,
subjective. There's not a subjective feeling about it.
Yeah. And like my life can be good regardless of, how much I have now. For me, we were always smart with our money. Like we budgeted, like you said, and we lived below our means. And so even when we didn't have a lot, we just didn't live with a lot.
Yeah.
And we learned to like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, as we got more, we, upgraded our lifestyle and it is what it is now. But, what I see is people start to become, I guess, what you would call lovers of money when they don't have enough.
Absolutely.
Right? So you said broke
they
people,
become Walter
they don't have
White.
enough. Yeah. And so for me, it's like that can happen when you're rich, right?
Yeah.
Or not rich, but let's just say you make a lot of money, but you're living at your means.
Yeah.
And so you're always having to go make more money and it stresses you out because you got to keep up the lifestyle and all this stuff.
You're working for money instead of money working for you, really.
Yeah, because you don't have the discipline to, live below your means, right? So I just think that because everyone can live below their means. Nobody's making you drive the car you got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody's even making you have a car.
Yeah.
Nobody's making you live in the house you have.
Yeah.
I'll get people who are like, yeah, but we have to live in this school district for our kids. And so that's why we're paycheck to paycheck. I'm like, who says that? Why do you have to live in the school district?
Yeah.
Nobody forced you to do that.
You created those confines.
Yeah. And so that's when you start to become, in my opinion, a lover of money is when you're so dependent on it.
That's real. That's good.
And you don't have a choice. And that comes at any level. Being broke, making a lot, both are the same. But, when you get somebody who's living below their means, even if they're not making a ton, dude, they're not loving money.
Yeah.
because they're not as worried about it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So with these Christians, man, I mean, you mentioned it a bunch, but like the poverty mindset, but then, you get guys who are prosperity gospel guys. And, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and I was like, but what do you think about, prosperity preaching? How do you like draw the line? And somebody was like, dude, that's kind of gone at this point. Like, they're like, that was like this huge thing with all these TV evangelists and but a lot of those guys, they're not around anymore.
They are a dying breed.
Yeah.
They're old. The movement was called Word of Faith, really. Probably the technical term, but yeah. I don't know, dude. I think it's gone. I think that iteration of it is probably gone. But I think it's always around.
Yeah.
It's always going to be, there's some form of it.
Right.
That's going to be around. Because the root of it is really narcissism. It is, right? Like, I always tell people there's exegesis, eisegesis, and then narcissism. So it's like every Bible verse is about me. Like, it's like, so I think the reason prosperity gospel like that was even a thing. And again, just think about this, right? Like the biggest group that consume that kind of content is poor people.
Yeah.
It's like the lottery.
Yeah.
I've never met wealthy people who play the lottery.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's just like made hundreds of millions of dollars running a business or in tech or playing the lottery. You don't. Okay. The lottery is a predatory thing, and who are they preying on? Poor people. People stopping at gas stations. People who are just don't have a lot, but they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So the chance of becoming rich overnight is appealing.
Yeah.
And so the same is true. That same psychology, the same psychology is working when, especially back in the 80s and 90s, prosperity gospel preachers like, if you sow $200, if you sow a seed of $500, then God's going to multiply it. Well, whatever.
Right.
Okay, well, in the same way that I have nothing to lose buying a scratch ticket, I got nothing to lose going to church and essentially gambling my money away in the offering. It's preying on that. All that's the prosperity gospel stuff, never popular with people who actually understand finances. That's not like, that never took root in, which is why. So really the real thing that I think prosperity gospel got criticized for is the disparity of wealth between the lives and the quality of lives of the people that were in the crowds versus
the pastor.
Right? So it's like, bro, you drive in, like, have you seen this dude in New York who like got robbed like at his church?
No.
Oh, bro, like there's this, like, you got to find it. I'll send it to you. Okay, this dude's preaching. Okay, he's in New York. And he's got, like, gold chains on. He's Gucci'd out. Like, he's preaching on stage, okay? And dudes come in with guns to rob him while he's preaching.
Jeez.
Okay, so he, like, gives him his chain. Like,
dang.
And, dude, I mean, the man's, like, got a Rolls Royce. Like, he's our age. This dude's our age, okay? And can't be more than 100 people in this church.
Yeah, how's that happening?
Precisely.
Yeah.
But it's scratch ticket
mentality.
Psychology.
Right.
It's like, I bet you there are no real ballers at his church. It's
yeah.
There's a, it's the crowd that appeals to. So I think prosperity gospel, I don't know. I think that the root of it is there's nothing to lose.
What do you think about, I've seen a lot of these mega church pastors criticized. Let's take a guy like Furtick for wearing Gucci and whatever else, right? And I've seen people and look, I don't know all the finances of different churches and everything else, but I'm like, one thing I do know is guys like Furtick are making a ton of money on their own, with their books, with everything.
We just stop at books.
Yeah.
we just
But
literally
he don't need to even take a salary. And he may not.
No, dude. I mean, we can start at just book deals, okay? I'm a nobody, and my book deal is 6 figures. Yeah. I'm a nobody. In the Christian world, I am a nobody. There are some people who may know who I am, but I'm not. Furtick has over 1 million followers on Instagram, okay? Yeah. Like, people actually know that man.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like, I am nobody in the Christian space, and my book deal's over 6 figures.
Yeah.
So, books alone, okay? Yeah. Second, real estate. Furtick is in a real estate development. Period. Third, gifts. If that man pays for sneakers, I'd be shocked.
Bro, you know what's so funny?
Shocked and surprised.
I'm literally wearing these shoes today. One of my students got me them yesterday for my birthday.
Yeah.
I was looking at all my designer shoes and I was like, dude, these are all gifts.
Yeah.
I haven't like bought any of them. This Patek was a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're not even at, so this false notion that, oh, this person's using tithe money to
buy Gucci
is, I think you'll say anything to let yourself off the hook for applying biblical principles to your life, like tithing and giving and being generous. Like, at the end of the day, people will find. So I'll tell you a story about my dad.
Well, and you didn't even mention this too, but like, I don't know how they're structured, but I don't know. Elevation has got to be making crazy money on music.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know how that's going down, but dude, I mean, the music is everywhere.
Everywhere. So I'll tell you a good story about my dad, okay? My dad, incarcerated for 18 years, struggled with drugs. When I was a teenager, my dad started coming to our church. Now, I was going to a mega church, okay? It was the largest church in the New England area. It's a great church, an amazing church. And Bishop Thompson drove a Mercedes. So my dad gets out of the sanctuary, goes around to the parking lot, and he sees Bishop Thompson getting into his Mercedes, okay? I'm with my dad. I'm probably like 15 years old. And my dad says, you see, man, this is why I don't get no money in no church. Look at this, man. He's driving this Mercedes Benz. My dad's pissed, okay? My dad's livid. See, man, I don't get no money in no church. I ain't about to, I'm not about to supply no man with a Mercedes Benz. Okay, I'm 15 years old. I'm not about to finance his lifestyle, is what my dad's, going on about.
Yeah.
I looked at my dad and I said, the drug dealer in our neighborhood also drives a Mercedes Benz that you paid for.
Dang.
Bro, you know how much crack you buy? With the amount of drugs you've bought since the time I was a child, you could put me through college multiple times over. The enemy has convinced you that you're not going to buy a Mercedes-Benz for anybody, but guess what? The joke's on you. You already have.
Yeah.
You maxed out all your credit cards. You don't think the vice president of Visa or MasterCard is driving a Mercedes? You go to the club every weekend. The cover charge at the club, plus you drink alcohol at the club. You don't think the club owner drives a Benz? You smoke multiple packs of cigarettes a week. Come on. Sin has taken all of your money from you. And now you're in church. At least keep that same energy. Please. Please. But how is it that you are a generous heathen but a stingy Christian?
Wow.
How in the world that you never budgeted a dime while you were smoking, drinking, getting high? Now you've come into the kingdom of light. God's transferred you from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light, and all of a sudden you're like, now you became an accountant? When did you become an accountant, sir? You've been a terrible manager of money my whole life. And now all of a sudden, I won't buy nobody no Benz. Too late, bro.
Yeah.
You've been out here financing Benzes.
That's what you do.
Okay? So I call it, the tax on sin. It's like there's a sin tax, man.
You know, that's a real thing in Canada.
For real.
Yeah. I lived in Canada playing baseball. They have something called the sin tax. So if you try to buy cigarettes, alcohol, bro, it's crazy expensive.
For real?
Yeah, like packs of cigarettes. This was 10 years ago. But dude, they were like $20, $30.
That is wild.
Because Canada pays for the healthcare of its citizens.
Oh.
So they're like, bro, you want to do stupid crap? You're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Because we ain't going to pay for it.
Yeah. And to me, I'm like, Dad, I said to my father, I said, Dad, do you understand just how much money you save by being a Christian and by getting delivered
Yeah.
and by getting free? Like, my dad started tithing that day.
Oh, wow. So that convicted him.
Oh, yeah. My dad's whole thing was, I ain't paying for Bishop Thompson to drive no Mercedes. And I literally was like, dude, the drug dealer in our neighborhood definitely drives a Mercedes.
Mm.
And if you were his only client, he would still have a Mercedes, bro.
Dang.
What are you talking about, man?
Dang.
I was 15. I had a bit of a sharp tongue at 15.
Are we sure you were saved?
Oh, bro, I was saved. I was saved, but I was dealing with hood parents, bro.
Had to make a point.
Dealing with hood parents, bro. By 15, I was the most mature person in my household.
Yeah.
By 15.
Right.
Which, it's funny, I've now learned is like training ground for being an entrepreneur.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a study, I can't remember what school did it, that was like over 90% of entrepreneurs grew up in some kind of chaotic home.
Yeah.
So whether that's alcohol or addiction or whatever, chaos can be defined in multiple ways. But the overall majority of entrepreneurs grow up in some kind of chaotic home. So there's a little bit of like, what would stress the normal person out doesn't stress me out.
Right.
Because my dad was on drugs. Like, to stress me out takes
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said back to what we said
takes a lot.
originally, like your experiences define how you perceive problems.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You're like, oh, yeah, being an entrepreneur, that's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not knowing where I'm going to make money or how I'm going to do it. Yep. I know.
And people who typically have households like that, where like their parents are unpredictable, they learn early on, I have to depend on myself.
Yeah.
So it develops these skills in you that's like, oh, yeah, no, there are no parents. Like these adults, I can't trust these adults.
Yeah.
But I can trust me. And so, and if there's any kind of like Christian influence, I can trust God. I can trust myself. I can trust God. It helps you to learn how to trust your instinct.
Mm.
It helps you to learn that there's no safety net. It helps you to learn there's no, I can't go live in mom and dad's basement if all this fails. Like I have to succeed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Okay, there's this iconic scene, right, where Batman's trying to get out of this prison, it's a dungeon, and he's got to make this leap. And he's been doing it with this rope attached to him.
Yep.
So that every time he falls, the rope catches him. And then one of the older prisoners says, there's only one person that's escaped, but they did it without the rope. And knowing that there was no rope to catch him, he jumps, and he knows if he doesn't make it, he's going to fall to his death.
Yeah.
And there's something about that actually made him make the leap and land it. And knowing I don't have parents to fall back on, I've got to trust my own instincts. I depend on God for everything. Like growing up in a chaotic home was actually the training ground for, we don't know how payroll's going to run next week. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right? Like part of, when you think about being an entrepreneur, it's not the mind. It's what do you have the stomach for?
Yeah.
What do you have and what stresses a lot of people out?
Yeah.
Again, it's the stress that actually makes you strong.
Yeah.
And would I have chosen to have a drug addict for a father? Of course not. Of course not. No one, I wouldn't choose that for my worst enemy, But man, can I look back now and say, I wouldn't have chose it. I'm not saying it was good, but I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it.
Mm.
I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that God can use anything. 'Cause I wouldn't be who I am without it. And I think there's a lot of people who it's almost like they can't get over the unfairness of it.
Yeah.
And so they just stay stuck
Yeah.
their whole life. And yeah, dude. So that it's so get this. So there's two sides to this study that was done. The first part was, okay, over 90% of entrepreneurs, they've got a stomach for chaos.
Yeah.
Like things that stress other people out, just don't stress them out. But the study actually ends on a negative note because then it says that most entrepreneurs are actually addicted to chaos. And so they create it. They become these tornado machines, right?
Yeah.
So you'll hire administrative assistants and operations people to like bring order to the chaos, and then the leader just keeps creating more chaos.
Right.
Because chaos is the only environment they know how to thrive in.
Yeah, it's too peaceful.
Yeah.
Let's switch it up.
Yeah. Right. So there's this tension that we have to manage, and pastors are the same way. Like I think most pastors are very entrepreneurial. To move to a city and just like start a church,
It's starting a church is an entrepreneurial thing.
it is an entrepreneurial thing. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Like, and that,
I've had there's a lot of pastors here right now,
yeah,
who are trying to figure out how to be, bivocational.
yeah,
And that way they can do their church and everything else. I mean, that's what I've done with Wealthy Kingdom. It's like, dude, I'll go fund this thing myself,
yeah.
and plant these Bible studies and everything
That's amazing.
else. But it came second nature to me. I'm like, yo, this is exactly what we should do.
Second nature.
Yeah.
No, people who know how to march off the map.
Yeah.
Like that's people who just like go to a city and like get like a team together and start raising money and like find a place to. It's like, yeah, man, that's freaking entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But if you're not careful, that same thing that makes you awesome, that makes you great, will create chaos, man.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I remember, my family's super dysfunctional. My wife's family's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like her family's peaceful and
yeah,
and just like functional. And I remember our first couple years of marriage were rough because I didn't know how to live in peace.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. I kept disrupting peace.
Yeah.
Like I'd create arguments for nothing. And you want the pros without the cons. You want the asset without the liability. The asset is chaos doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But that liability is that, well, actually I start generating chaos and I start creating problems. And if it's too peaceful, I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I got to know the difference between killing Goliath and killing Uriah. Because that's the greatness of David, right? He's a killer. He's a killer. Yeah. My man's a killer. But if you're not careful, you end up killing someone that God didn't put on the hit list.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same skill set. So we can praise David for killing Goliath. Like, go, David. But David using that same skill set to kill Uriah. And it's sinful when he kills Uriah. And I think there's a lot of, it's the best advice my pastor gave me when I got married. Said, Manny, your gift to preach is for stage. Said, do not use that gift when you argue with your wife.
Oh, my wife, but I needed to hear that.
You better not take out that weapon on your wife. My pastor said these words. He said, you arguing with Tia with the gift God gave you to motivate thousands of people would be like Mike Tyson punching somebody in the street.
Yeah.
Those hands are registered weapons, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tyson can't just go out here and punch somebody.
Yeah.
He'll break their face. Those are for the ring. To get into a ring with another person who's got gloves on and who's been trained. And the ability to argue, the ability to fly in from Texas, land, sit down in his chair and just talk to you with no notes and no prep.
Yep.
Bro, living with that is it. I can't walk around, and what'll happen with most pastors is their staff has to deal with that.
Yeah.
Everybody around, it's like, oh man, we love it when he does it on stage, but if there's nobody in that person's life, whether you're a CEO or whether you're a senior pastor, whatever, it's the same gift. The gift to raise funds, that's a fundraising gift. The gift to talk and my words generate stuff. All it is just words. And it has an ability to move people, to write a check or to change their life or to get baptized. That is a special thing. And the first couple years of me and Tia's marriage, my pastor asked me, do you think your wife is equally smart as you? And I said, absolutely. I married a woman who's smart. I didn't marry a dummy. My wife's smart. Graduated at the top of her class, got a business degree from Gordon College. Like, my wife's brilliant. My pastor said, do you think she's wise? I said, yeah, she's wise. And so he said, okay, then that means she wins 50% of the arguments, right? And I said, no. He said, what percentage of the arguments would you say Tia wins? And I said, probably less than 10, 15%. And he said, okay, which then means you're not smarter than her. You're just a better arguer. You're just a better debater. And so I'm an extrovert. My wife's an introvert, which means I'm a verbal processor. And my wife's an internal processor. So the last time me and my wife went to Israel, I wanted to take my son. So I was like, at the time, man, dude, Ryan, my son's like 1.5. Okay. And I'm like, I didn't get on an airplane. I grew up poor. I didn't get on an airplane until I was almost in college. I want to give my son all these experiences. We're taking my son to Israel. And so Tia says, we'd actually learned I cannot argue in ways that favor the extrovert or favor the verbal processor. So I said, okay, we're going to talk about this on Tuesday at noon. We'll go to lunch. We'll talk about whether or not we're going to take Theo to Israel. So over the course of the 4 days, my wife prepares for this conversation. We sit down and my wife prints out a document and hands it to me. And it's 10 reasons why we shouldn't take Theo to Israel. I read the first 3 and I go, yeah, you win. Yeah, you win. Like, this is the wisest freaking thing. Yeah. Yeah. But if we had the conversation Friday at 3 when it was on my mind, then I would have won the argument.
Yeah.
Just because I won the argument doesn't mean I had the best argument.
Yeah.
It just meant I was the person that was willing to argue it better.
Well, you're the person who can improvise quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, I can think on my feet.
Yeah.
And so the phrase that my pastor used to say to me is like, hey, when you're talking to your wife, you sheath your sword. You do not pull the sword out when you're talking to her.
Yeah.
That is reserved for fighting the enemy. That's reserved for preaching. That's reserved for fighting for people when you're up on stage. That's reserved for altar calls. That's reserved for the realm. It's holy. Okay, so holy doesn't mean sinful. Holy just means it's uncommon. So in the Old Testament, the bowls that were in the temple, they were holy. So I couldn't take those bowls and take them to my mom's house and get some ramen. I couldn't put no ramen in the bowls from the tabernacle. Using the bowl at my mom's house isn't sinful. It's taking that which is not common and using it for common use.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, man, this is a gift. It's a gift from God. Talking, communicating, preaching, casting vision, leading teams, fundraising. This is a gift that God's given you. Don't use it for common use.
Yeah.
Don't use it in ways that don't bring life. Don't use it. Because a lot of pastors, man, that I know at least, their church loves them. Their staff hates them.
Yeah.
Their families are just like, woo, if you only knew.
Yeah.
And so that Uriah thing always gets me. It's like, David, dude, if you could minimize the liabilities and maximize the assets, kill Goliath, bro. Don't kill Uriah. This is just the liability. It's the flip side of your gift. It's the dark side of the gift. And I think what maturity with God begins to do is helps you to discern when I'm tapping into my gift, but using it in ways that either serve myself or I'm using it in ways that are emotionally manipulative or, that's been really helpful, man. And I'm not perfect at it.
Yeah.
Trust me.
But you're aware.
But I'm aware.
Yeah.
I'm aware. I at least have a check engine light.
Yeah. Well, bro, I could talk for forever. And actually, I know you could talk for forever. but I could listen. I could listen because, dude, I even had just a ton of insights on this. But, man, I'm excited for you to bring the heat tomorrow at WealthCon, man.
It's going to be fun.
We're going to use the sword. You have permission to use the sword tomorrow.
Tomorrow's a great
It's
place.
a great place to use it, man.
Unsheath the sword.
We're going to save some souls.
Mike Tyson, baby.
Yep. Unleash it. And, other than that, man, I'm excited to get to know you better, man. And I think this is going to encourage a lot of people.
I hope so.
I appreciate you, bro.
Dude, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah. We'll link to all Manny's stuff down below, guys. He's got an amazing academy and everything else that you guys can go join. And make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.